Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, ko Michael Barrett, toko ingoa. Welcome everyone. My name's Michael Barrett. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this session on the economic diversification potential of the creative industries in Tāmaki Makaurau. Before we get started though, I'll quickly explain the structure of this session, which differs slightly from today's other talks. As an economic sector, the creative industries is not always clearly understood. To define it and build context around it, we've split our time today into three parts, loosely speaking a what, who and why of the creative industries. First up, you'll hear from Ben Corban, Managing Director of Alt Group, who will give a broad overview of the sector globally. Alt Group is a strategic design company that has worked with a range of public and private organisations in many parts of the world, with specific experience in creative industries growth strategies. Following Ben, we have 5 esteemed speakers who will share unique perspectives and insights into creative industries practice in Aotearoa. And finally, our aim is to pull together some themes and thoughts about the future direction of the sector with the help of Pam Ford, the General Manager of Economic Development at Auckland Unlimited. So without further ado, because time will be short, I'd like to hand over to Ben Corban. Ben.
Tēnā koutou katoa. In opening the session on the creative industries, I'm going to speak briefly on 3 aspects. Firstly, what it is. Secondly, why it's important. And thirdly, the opportunity it presents for Auckland. By definition, the creative industries is a broad sector, including advertising, architecture and design, film and television, gaming, software and technology, music, visual and performing arts and publishing. And the terms creative industry and creative economy have been used by government since the mid-90s. But over the past 20 years, it's become a significant global sector prized by growing cities around the world for its role in economic diversification, contribution to GDP and job creation. And in that sense, the creative industries is an economic innovation engine. Its long-term value for Auckland and New Zealand is immense, and the growth potential from an export perspective is limitless. It presents an opportunity to inspire new forms of entrepreneurship for new economies. For clarification, the creative industries is not arts and culture in that it's not based on grants or patronage, but businesses operating at the intersection of creativity and commerce, many of them small and medium-sized, that pay tax, build value, employ people, and contribute to the economy. So why is all that important? Globally, the creative industries contributes over 3% of total GDP, 2.25 trillion, and is one of the fastest growing sectors. At a national level, for example, in the UK, it contributes 225 billion annually, or roughly 80% of New Zealand's total GDP. But in New Zealand, the creative industries is not currently recognised as a sector or measured at a central government level. However, a 2017 New Zealand report estimated the total contribution of design, a creative industries subsector, at around 10.1 billion or 4.2% of GDP. So if design alone was treated as an industry sector, its contribution to the economy would be larger than agriculture at 8.1 billion. Drilling down further, recent Auckland Unlimited figures show Auckland's creative economy employs more than 53,000 people, with forecasts of more than 17,000 new sector jobs between 2022 and 2025, overall representing 5% of the regional economy. It has one of the highest annual growth rates across all sectors in the past 5 years. But lastly, its importance is in what it connects: economic diversification, GDP contribution, emerging industries and new entrepreneurship through to jobs, careers and livelihood, and then beyond that, urban renewal and culture and identity, and together delivering transformative economic impact and social impact. So in terms of the opportunity for Auckland within the creative industries, the first opportunity is to recognise it as a contributing sector to our economy. To have it measured at a central and local government level would be a fantastic start. Its contribution to GDP and employment is an essential input for future policy development to support its growth. Understanding it more would enable it to be better used as a tool beyond that for urban regeneration and precinct development projects which are essential to the development of the city. Secondly, to build career pathways and a talent pipeline. The creative industries is populated with emerging sectors and a culture around new entrepreneurship that's still developing. The sector is based on rapidly evolving skills, emerging technologies, and a diversity of disciplines and practice areas. The convergence of these is what future jobs will be built on. We need our tertiary institutions better tuned to this and broader understanding within our schools of the continuous evolution of these career pathways. Thirdly, to identify levers to accelerate development. Globally, cities and countries seeking new ways to encourage innovation and development are competing for the creative industries, and it is a highly competitive space. Almost every government in the world is beginning to recognise it and leverage it in terms of its potential to generate jobs and businesses, especially the SMEs, which form the heart of many economies. The last opportunity is to own a new narrative, designed in New Zealand, invented in New Zealand and founded in New Zealand, because this is one of the easiest places in the world to start anything. We live on innovation islands. Aotearoa, New Zealand, is a great place to grow things and take them to the world, food, wine and wood, but beyond that, a great place to start, grow and scale new economy businesses. In summary, we need to look beyond the traditional drivers of economic growth being just labour and capital towards a future where one of the key drivers will be creativity and new thinking. A recent United Nations report on the creative economy described it as not only one of the most rapidly growing sectors in the world economy, but one that is highly transformative in terms of income generation, job creation and export earnings. But ultimately, the best case for the creative industries is none of what I've just covered, but the companies themselves who will tell their stories next. They are the evidence of the potential for the sector nationally and regionally. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Exit stage right. We're now going to jump straight into some industry perspectives, and speaking first is Mark Elmore, Vice President of Design and Brand at Fisher & Paykel Appliances, which is a heritage brand most of you probably know, with an exceptional track record in industrial design innovation. Tēnā koe, Mark.
Thank you. Designed in Aotearoa, New Zealand, we've positioned Fisher & Paykel to be the world's #1 luxury premium appliance brand. At Fisher & Paykel, we are designing for a changing world. Our deep curiosity around the life lived around our products is what drives us. How our customers shop, cook across cultures and continents, how people live life from everyday routines to weekend rituals. This is about human connection, and in today's world, this is more important than ever. We see urbanisation changing the built environment. We see sustainability as the movement of our time. We see the growing importance of healthy living, and we all know that technology is radically reshaping the way that we live. So designing for a changing world is what clarifies our purpose and our leading goals. Of course, this is underpinned by a strong culture of curiosity, insight, creativity and innovation that is tightly linked to our commercial outcomes. We've been based in Auckland since 1934, and as a legacy brand, it continues to evolve and reinvent itself within New Zealand's changing economic environment. At various times, we have been an importer, a manufacturer, exporter, technology business, but more recently, our Auckland base has become a design and innovation engine that creates products and experiences for the world stage. Our innovation engine comes from skill and knowledge generated here in New Zealand. We have recently grown our in-house team of over 400 designers, engineers, developers, producers, and creatives. With this team, we have built a deep knowledge of the end-to-end customer journey and have built internal capability that covers every facet and touch point of this experience. We have many, many specialists, including brand, product, UX, digital, spatial, architecture, web, animation, software, the list goes on. We augment our core capability with a range of strategic partners, often local, and thought leaders. Many of these are long-term partnerships. They help stretch our thinking and increase our talent pool. We learn globally, but bring this knowledge back to New Zealand, where we use our unique culture, creativity, and fresh perspective to then take these innovative solutions back to our global customers. This positioning opportunity comes from knowledge and skills generated here, and the opportunity presented by our parent company to connect our talent and inspiration to the world. We are part of Hire Smart Home, the largest appliance company in the world. Our Auckland Design Centre is one of many in the Hire Global Innovation ecosystem. 10 years ago, Hire recognised our potential for design innovation and invested in us. This belief in our potential has allowed us to grow into a global premium brand from New Zealand. Hire's business approach is based on micro-enterprises, despite being a $32 billion multinational with over 70,000 employees. Globally, Hire has 200 largely autonomous micro-enterprises. Last year, 70% of them had revenues exceeding $20 million. We are driven by entrepreneurial, self-managing teams within a marketplace of ideas, talent, and partnerships. It is an innovative approach that makes us more nimble, creative, and responsive. We are experiencing growth in the luxury premium space in all of our markets. We see growth opportunities that tied to the development of connected ecosystems that are transforming our business around the principles of sustainable design. We are building on our strengths to create leading kitchen and whole-of-home solutions. Our future success will continue to be built on finding and growing an increasingly diverse pool of talented and creative workers, both homegrown and imported. This will support our growth in the luxury premium space, as well as building our whole-of-home ecosystem. We will continue to build a strong in-house end-to-end development team with deep knowledge of our future customers. In addition, we are building partnerships with others in the creative and technology sectors that allow us to augment our capability and take this to the world stage. Connected ecosystems provide us with the platform for deeper, enduring engagement with our consumers. That content will be shaped by the talent and knowledge sitting within the overlap of creativity and technology. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you, Mark. Next, I'd like to introduce Sam Ramlu, co-founder of the digital agency Method and a game development company called M Theory. Sam's a Kiwi pioneer in the augmented reality space. Kia ora, Sam, over to you.
Morena, everyone. It's really nice to see some familiar and friendly faces in the audience. I'm a founder, director, and storyteller in the creative tech sector. 18 years ago, which makes me a veteran, sadly, my partner and I founded Method. We saw an opportunity for a new breed of creative studio, one that offered a more entertaining and immersive way to engage people with brands and stories through technology, often in really groundbreaking ways. Through Method, we deliver awe-inspiring experiences across digital platforms for a range of different clients. These include anything from websites, augmented reality, virtual reality, apps, games, software, and interactive exhibitions. Some of our recent and past projects include an exhibition for Captain Bligh at the Australian National Maritime Museum, Butterflies exhibition at Auckland Museum, a unique student recruitment website for University of Auckland, virtual reality training and experiences for Fisher & Paykel Healthcare, and an augmented reality walking tour for Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei. A few years ago, we set up M Theory. The idea with M Theory was to launch our own original IP under that brand while continuing to do our work in the service sector. A key project we've got in development at the moment is Wanderer. Wanderer is, wait for it, a virtual reality time travel adventure game, and it's a joint venture with another local game studio. So we got a tiny bit of funding from the Film Commission, and we self-funded the rest, over about $200,000 over a couple of years to build our game idea and demo. And we took it around the world, all around the world, trying to find funding. We were lucky enough to attract Sony as a key investor a couple of years ago, and the team are literally frantically working away on the game now as I speak. The game is due to release later this year on PlayStation, Oculus, and through the Steam store, with marketing and promotional support from Sony. I can't tell you how much Wanderer is a dream come true and a big deal for any indie game studio, no matter what country you're in. We're proudly Tamaki Makaurau based, and we've got a team of about 25 to 30 people across the two studios. We employ Kiwis from all walks of life, whether they were born in Aotearoa or have made Aotearoa their home. Over the years, we've been tempted and attempted to be lured to offshore countries such as Canada and Taiwan with some amazing funding and support opportunities, generous funds and tax rebates to essentially set up the same businesses we've got here in other countries. Our heart, however, lies in Tamaki Makaurau. This is where we want to continue doing the great work we're doing and creating content and stories with international appeal. I think it's been said this morning about a recent development in Australia last week, where they announced 30% of tax rebates for gaming studios. This is going to have a major impact in our games industry, and it's suddenly too close to home and can't be ignored. Not only will we start to lose talented people, we'll also lose local companies. We're not going anywhere yet. Companies don't want to leave, but they might not have a choice soon. Investors also are going to start to see Australia as an investment opportunity, bigger than New Zealand. We just don't have the same level of support here. So it's an urgent call for us to up our game in Aotearoa. And we need support. Support comes in a few different ways. Training, advocacy, and of course, funding. We need creative tech and gaming to be acknowledged nationwide as a sector that has immense growth opportunities. A sector that has grown immensely despite the lack of support. A sector that impacts almost every other sector, from entertainment to healthcare, education to tourism. I personally want to continue working on projects such as Wanderer. Right now, at the end of development, we don't have any extra funds to carry on. So we're now looking at what that means for our studio that we've built from the ground up. It's really odd to stand here talking about creative industries without any examples of work. So if you could do me a favor later on and check out wanderervr.com, that'd be awesome. But I think the thing there, rather than me just using this as a marketing ploy, is for you to have a look at the trailer and, and have a look at how that represents us on a global stage. To sum up, our work competes on a world stage. We started in this space 18 years ago, benchmarking ourselves against international companies. And I don't see why we, in Aotearoa and Tamaki Makaurau, can't set the benchmark ourselves. Kia ora.
Thanks, Sam. It's very interesting. Nice to hear your insights. Our next speaker is also from the game development sector. Chris Harris, co-founder of Ninja Kiwi, a company that began as a part-time gig in 2006 and was recently acquired by a Swedish gaming giant called MTG. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks. Good morning, everybody. As said, I'm Chris Harris. I'm co-founder and CEO of Ninja Kiwi. We're a developer and publisher of mobile and PC games based in Auckland. In 2006, I founded the company with my brother Stephen, and we managed not only to survive, but to have a degree of success in a highly competitive industry. In 2012, we acquired a game studio in Dundee, Scotland, and we've since grown the team to around 40 in Auckland and around 30 in Scotland. Owning our own IP and developing and publishing as we do gives us the ability to do not only what we want to do, but to publish things when we think they're ready. In the beginning, we set up the the company in Stephen's spare bedroom in Muriwai. When we outgrew that bedroom, which was the addition of one employee, we moved to Kumeu. Kumeu being the nearest town to where we both lived that actually had commercial office space. Now, in the beginning, we did have some concerns about whether or not we were going to be able to attract staff being that far from the CBD. But as it turned out for us, the maxim, build it and they will come, held true. In the beginning, Stephen was the lead programmer and game designer. I did some fairly average art, among other things. But we were very clear from the beginning that what we were building was a business, and the business needed to be profitable and it needed to be scalable. Owning our own IP and developing our own IP and being fortunate enough to do that meant that we weren't required to do some of the work for hire stuff that fellow game studios need to do, particularly the young ones. It also enabled us to reflect our own family and personal values on the business. We are big fans of personal and family time. We're not fans of the long work hours and crunch that is common in the industry. And so I think it's through that we've been able to build a happy and healthy game studio, and that's allowed us to retain staff long term. We're never talking about the future of the business and possible acquisition. Stephen and I always talk about this term net happiness. We're a very profitable business, so an acquisition is going to require more than ticking just a couple of boxes. We've built up a relationship with MTG over a number of years, and now we've got a great deal of trust in them, and I think the future for our business and our brand is quite strong. The games industry has matured a lot over the last couple of decades. The average age of a gamer is now 34. Around half of all gamers are female, and in a gaming survey by YouTube, nearly half of all gamers surveyed admitted to watching games more than they play them. We have the advantage of being able to work from anywhere in the world, and this has protected us from things such as COVID, but it also gives us a great deal of flexibility. The games industry globally is worth some $167 billion US. The movie industry around 136 billion, and that includes home entertainment such as Netflix. The music industry, 55 billion. Now, the games industry is expected to grow to nearly $300 billion US by the year 2027. This is a huge opportunity. We've already spoken a little bit about what the Australians are doing. Governments around the world are creating tax incentives and other types of funding in order to attract and retain talent in this fast-growing industry. The games industry is bigger, more mature, and more powerful than I think many people understand. For the time being, Ninja Kiwi has no plans to relocate. We're very happy. We love New Zealand. But, you know, the games industry has a very bright future in New Zealand, but this is potentially under threat, so we need to make sure we are maximising all the opportunities available. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris. It's wonderful to hear your story. Our next speaker, Barry Suter, has many feathers to his cap. Perhaps the best way to describe him is as a driving force behind Māori tech entrepreneurship. Nā koe, Barry. Great to have you here today.
Good morning, Auckland, or Morena Akarana. 2.5 years ago, I was on a panel with Pam Ford, and it was about how do we use tech to build the economy in Auckland, and I said shift to Gisborne. Here I am today to tell you why we should connect to Auckland and talk about an entrepreneurial opportunity and how that came about. So during COVID, I was living in Gisborne, had just freshly moved back there last year, and entrepreneurship is the intersection of preparation and opportunity. At the time, Sam Widders, who is a global exemplar in the whole production sector, also co-located into Gisborne coincidentally, and a young Māori animator. between the three of us, we saw what happened in March with the massive spike in demand for particularly production, but particularly animation content globally, and at the same time, the capacity to put those that kind of content together went through the floorboards because people couldn't collaborate. And so we saw that opportunity, we pivoted on it, and by about January this year, we opened the office in Gisborne. It's a really new business model, and it's based around the idea of collaborating for scale. And so what we are is a production studio down in Gisborne that does training for the workforce needed in that environment, because the cottage industry style of creatives in New Zealand just doesn't cut the mustard in the global scene. And then a technology software development shop to produce the automation to make the workflow processes go faster. And then the third thing is a collective of 20 production companies in Auckland that really give the ability to scale. And so during COVID, we tested that proposition with the New Zealand government, with NZ Inc., around whether there would be demand for the kind of services that New Zealand can offer in that space. 8,000 hits in 3 weeks, slowly converting that into contracts as we speak. And then the commitment by the 20 collective, primarily here in Auckland, is that 15 to 30% of their work should be produced in Gisborne. Now, the reason why they do that is twofold. One is that's their commitment to New Zealand, and it's a commitment to help lift regional economic development in a place that sorely needs it. The Tairāwhiti is the second most economically challenged region of New Zealand, has a population of 52% Māori, so that makes it the most Māori place in the universe. So if we can get that model working out of Gisborne into Auckland, really working well, then we think we've got a proposition that we could spread around the country. The idea being to leverage the 40% economic engine of Auckland and make it bigger. So with that in mind, my ask of this audience is that in our training, we're training a high-tech role in terms of that whole creative sector and animation, ultimately software dev and cybersecurity, is that if there's any companies in the room who want to take interns trained commercially on commercial work, we'll be available to have a chat to you about it, because our first cohort of 25 high-end animators commences in July. With a 15-week course to get them through to roles. And those roles will primarily be in Auckland. Now, by connecting what we're doing in Gisborne, we've already been asked to go to other regions and replicate the model that we've got, but we're not going to do that until we've actually proven out the entire model. We have our first international customer in one of the largest, one of the top 4 production houses out of Hollywood, and then on the technology side, we've got our first domestic contract that we're delivering right now, and we've got a chain of international opportunities coming at us quickly. So again, just to repeat the ask, if you're interested in taking interns from us, we'd be keen to talk to you at the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. And last but in no way least, I'd like to introduce Manawa Udy from Ngāhere Communities, a group of social enterprises located in Manukau that has developed a range of initiatives to build skills and create opportunities for young entrepreneurs. Over to you.
Kia ora tātou. Auckland's future now, eh? Let's take a moment to talk about the creative, innovative gold mine of Auckland that we call South Auckland. You know, we all know South Auckland is young, brown and passionate. I'll ask you guys today, give me one example of a creative discipline that Māori and Pasifika people do not excel at. I'll let you think about it, because it's a hard question to ask. We might have heard the saying, you probably heard the saying, necessity is the mother of all innovation. The primary driving force of most innovation is need, and where in Tamaki Makaurau is the most amount of need. So the latest stats from Tech NZ, or somewhere, I can't remember exactly, sorry, but 4% of the tech sector, which includes creative tech, is made up of our Māori people, and then 2.8% of our Pasifika brothers and sisters. Yet 16% of Auckland's working population is Māori and Pasifika. So straight up, the maths, it just doesn't add up. We're not doing it right. The future of Auckland's creative economy is in our Māori and Pasifika communities. I firmly believe that, and we've got to harness it. Wasted potential in our people is what puts a fire in my puku. It's the driving force and the motivator behind Ngā Here Inc. So tēnā tātou ko Manawa Wharepu tōku ingoa. I'm the founder and CEO of Ngā Here Inc. We're a whānau of social enterprises based in the Manukau CBD, all focused at tackling inequality. We create communities that enhance creativity and innovation using collaborative spaces, common values, and co-design programs. We've been going for 3 years. We now have 14 staff, all Māori, Pasifika, and a few Asians to just balance out the flavour. We have 8 projects across 3 legal entities, and we're building a powerful pipeline of growth and development for creatives in Manukau and across Aotearoa. We're going to talk later, Barry. We have Grid Manukau partnering with Auckland Unlimited, the awesome team under Pam. So with the Grid Auckland Innovation Movement, we have a space now in Manukau, South Auckland, that opens access to all of our creators, innovators and entrepreneurs. Super important. We deliver Tukua Toi. So Tukua Toi is the South Auckland delivery of the government's Creative Careers Service pilot, which aims to arm our artists with the commerce and the, confidence that they need to thrive in this new environment as creative entrepreneurs. We have Ngā Here Creators, our in-house content creation studio. We currently employ 5 creatives, all Māori and Pasifika. Actually, one of them's not. She is an international student who got stuck here during the lockdown and didn't want to leave. Our team manage 8 brands, and do content marketing across all social media platforms. And then we have Cornei, a new online shopping experience. Cornei uses the power of e-commerce to help whānau increase income, improve their mindsets, that's a big key here, and sharpen their skill sets. If you want to take, I actually wore this top today so you could see how to spell Cornei, K-O-N-E-I, which means this place, our place. If you want to know more about us, we have a podcast called Ngā Here Talks. There's heaps of awesome insights and kōrero on there, or you can find us on most platforms at Ngā Here Communities or at cornei.nz. So what is our now challenge? Our now challenge is scale. It's cracking open our creative goldmine. We need confident artists in their craft and commerce. We need better growth pathways for our content creators. We need visible role models. Rakai, shout out to you, bro, and senior creatives, and we need more of our people employing our people. So introduce to you guys now our brand new concept that's actually in motion, Ngā Here Studios, empowering South Auckland artists to tell stories that connect culture and humanity. Ngā Here Studios is a triple threat. We're potentially South Auckland's first studios and production house that has a powerful career pathway for young creatives. We offer content creation and marketing services to New Zealand's corporates and are building the capability to be able to put Aotearoa stories on platforms like Netflix and YouTube. We also open up access to all of South Auckland's artists, especially the emerging artists, making it easier for you to engage with the goldmine that we're opening. And then thirdly, we focus on intentionally investing on bringing through these new role models and new employers so that in the future, employment by Māori, for Māori, by Pasifika, for Pasifika, is just what we do. So what? Let's mine the gold together. Number 1 for you guys, start hiring from South Auckland, because demand creates supply. Number 2, invest in our production house. I'll tell you now, trying to build something like this, when you and all your friends have nothing, no economic base, it's really effing hard. I muted that for you guys. So, together's better. And 3, we need to support our people to support our people. Share the contract, share the investment, share it around. Don't get Pākehā to help us. Let us help ourselves. One question just to wrap up. Did anyone come up with a creative discipline we're not good at? I didn't think so. South, Auckland's cultural, creative, innovative goldmine.
Thanks, Manoa, for your kōrero. Your phone will be ringing hot after this, I'm sure. So, yeah, call it out. Thanks to all our speakers today. Before we break, we've got about 10 minutes, I think, for a few questions. Pam's been sitting quietly down the end there. Pam Ford, Auckland Unlimited's General Manager of Economic Development. I'll get it out at some stage. Uniquely positioned to reflect on some of the things we've talked about, I think, or some of what our speakers have talked about. But firstly, Pam, I think we've established the global and local value of the creative industries. if we all agree that it's a space that we should be in, I guess the first question is, where do we go to from here?
Thanks, Mike. Gosh, what a lot to absorb and take in, and wonderful examples from the panel. It's just so inspiring. I mean, I live and breathe this every day, but just to hear these stories is fantastic. It was talked about earlier, I think, by Anna Kominick, is that from here we look at what others do and copy what they do. And one of the countries that we have looked at closely is the UK and what they have done around creating a creative industries force and sector. And the important point there was how they centralised all of the industries. So the other thing that they did was in 1997 started mapping the creative industries as an agglomerated sector. And just before the pandemic, their GDP growth was 4 times what the growth was of the UK. So it's working. In 2020, they have started mapping the creative tech sector. And what that says to me, to us, is the whole Charles Darwin idea that survival of the fittest is not the smartest or the most intelligent, but the ability to adapt, and so adapting to what the new world is looking like. And so the obvious answer to that question is usually, let's build a framework, let's build a plan. And I want to acknowledge, I think Victoria Blood's here today, the work of We Create. They've done the framework, they've done that work over the last 4 or 5 years. The team at Auckland Unlimited have been working with industry here in Tamaki Makaurau for the last couple of years, trying to build what that action plan would be. But the barrier is that lack of aggregation or acknowledgement of all of those sectors to really then see what the value of that sector is. So I think there's a bit of work to do there. Even though we know, as Ben said, 54,000 employed in Auckland, that's the same as the tourism industry pre-COVID, so it is significant. And I guess the key point too, I think Mark Elmore's example of Fisher and Paykel, the whole key is around that commercialisation of these ideas and how you actually add that creative input to create something that's really special and has more value.
Yeah, I think in the UK they started mapping the creative industries in like 1997 or 8. I think the Australians came up with the word first in 1994 or 5, which doesn't mean much. But I mean, here we seem to, when you talk about centralising, I guess at a government level, the creative industry so that we can properly measure and map them. I mean, currently they sort of sit under the culture and heritage basket. Does that need to shift somehow, do you think?
Well, some is at culture and heritage, obviously. Digital is really strong sector and recognised by MB, so in different parts. So I think if we had more of a coordinated kind of approach to what that broader creative industries is. But it goes to a point that we've talked about today, is deciding what you want to be good at and really going for it. So I think this week, the Australian budget announcement for the gaming sector is kind of this jolt, and it's really affected people in the industry here going, crikey, what's that going to mean? Everybody's going to shift. I'm not going to suggest incentives at the risk of eye roll from my mates at MB here, but there are other ways, and I believe we need to change the conversation. The conversation is that we are in a global competition for everything that we do, and I'm glad I'm on trend because I've heard this numerous times this morning, and that global competition is absolutely intense. So in a report I glanced at this week, it talked about Australian cities and what their attributes were and what their specialisation should be. And the one about Brisbane, which is our sister city, and we have a great relationship with that city, you could have taken the word out of Brisbane and put in Auckland, because all the attributes were the same. And their specialisation that this report suggested that they focus on, it was gaming and technology. So, traditionally our rivals we think are the rest of the world, but our old bogey rival of Australia in rugby, netball and cricket is now in construction, technology and creative industries. So we need to decide what we want to do here and where we focus our talent attraction and investment. And again, it's been talked about today, we need to act now. I remember Jeff Ross when he was talking about his 42 Below vodka story, and his approach was bugger the boxing, just pour the concrete. So we've got the frameworks, we've got lots of frameworks, we've got lots of talking, we've got lots of wonderful Māori by Māori, gaming for gaming, all the rest of it. Let's pour the concrete.
Yeah. Sort of at a practical level, I mean, it was great to hear Manoa and Barry talk, and it's the idea of community building as well around the creative industries and how healthy cities are often creative cities, and the intersections of entrepreneurs are really what drives an ecosystem. How can we support these ecosystems or build them up, aside from incentives, which we clearly probably have talked about enough? What other things can we do practically?
Oh, there's so many things that we can do. And like having everybody here today in a room is an example of galvanising common thought and then acting together. So if we talk about this industry, the creative industries, it's looking at, from a city point of view, what are the levers that local government has, what government has, what are the competitive advantages of the firms. There was a report from UNESCO and EY a couple of years ago talked about cities as a creative engine, or the driving engine, but it really highlighted, and you won't be surprised, the role of education and having access to higher education that provided that talent and also attracted people in. So I think the talent development side is absolutely critical, and it's good to see Media Design School will be opening their new campus in Wynyard Quarter in 2 weeks' time. It's not just education, it's got to be quality education that fits the future needs for technology, and it fits our community. So like you said, Manawa, it needs to be suited for people who belong to certain communities and driven by them. And to our Māori principles, for example, that's our unique advantage in here, and how do we build those into what we do? The other advantage that we've got, and I do want to just highlight this, it's been mentioned earlier, but in terms of how do we get the global recognition and relevancy, and in my business and the organisation that Nick drives, we do a lot of work around major events, and are really proud of the major events that we bring in. Sometime in 2022, Amazon Studios will release the largest teleseries in the world ever, the teleseries based on Lord of the Rings, which has arguably got the largest fan base in the world as well. And when that's released in 2022, Auckland and New Zealand will really be put back on that map again. And I'm sorry for Nigel Broomhill, because you'll still get people telling him that New Zealand Lord of the Rings. But it gives us a chance as creative industries to get ready to really leverage that opportunity and drive home a whole lot of activities and actions to make Auckland and New Zealand the home of creative industries.
Yeah. Just to find out, we've only got a minute or so to go, but...
Oh, I've got one more.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, just one more thing that someone brought up. I just had this thought before sitting here listening to someone, and it reminded me of Apple. And Apple's got this line, and they say, designed in California, made in China. And in my wild imagination, in 10 years' time, imagine if we had this byline that was known across the world of created in Tamaki Makaurau.
Yeah, it's a nice thing to imagine. I was just going to finish off with asking, in terms of talent, I mean, Barry, how much appetite have you found in Gisborne for what you're doing? I mean, is the pipeline open? I mean...
Yeah, look... If you have a look pre-COVID, there were 800 job shortage in Gisborne around the primary sector, forestry and all that sort of thing. And, the most amazing thing is that the aspiration was to through COVID, get more people into fencing and other activities. So it's the same old, same old. So when we took the proposition of Toro and Elmore into the economic development leadership there, they really recognised that this was a great opportunity for a convergent business model around creative and tech called Create Tech, to bring a tech economy into Gisborne that's well connected into the economic engine of New Zealand, which is called Auckland. So the appetite is absolutely there. When you look at the pipeline of young talent in the region, there's no shortage of it. and it got locked down during COVID, so they didn't go out to universities and that sort of thing. There's a latent demand down there that we could easily leverage. However, that needs to be connected into Auckland, and so the next job after this is how do we connect that for the pipeline that's the talent in Auckland.
Yeah. And Manoa, do you find the same thing, the appetite for creative industries?
Yeah, absolutely. In South Auckland, we definitely have AUT, we have Whitecliffe, we have MIT and Media Design School all pumping out graduates that are just freaking going to warehouse jobs. Like it's a waste. Yeah, so we're inundated. Creatives, as soon as we put a job out for creatives, we get heaps of really quality applications, and we just can't keep up. I don't have the money yet. Yet.
Maybe soon. All right, it's time for me to wrap up, unfortunately. Thanks, Pam. Thanks to all our speakers, Mark Elmore, Sam Ramlu, Chris Harris, Barry Suter, Manoa Udy. I'd just like to offer my sincere thanks for you all coming on today. You're out there doing it, making a fist of it, and real success stories. So thanks for sharing them with us.